Our drummers have left. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Anjaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Anjaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Padurjakacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padurjakacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Krantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil. And loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 24th day of February 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind. Chapter 5, Narada Muni Cursed by Prajapati Daksa. Text number 31. Bratrinam. No, it's a long R. Bratrinam. Prayanam. Brata. Yo. Anutishtati. Dharmavit. Sa. Punyabandhu. Purusho. Marudbihi. Saha. Modate. Bratrinam prahinam brata. Yonutishtati dharmavit. Sapunyabandhu purusho. Marudbi sahamodate. Bratrinam prayanam brata. Yonutishtati dharmavit. Sapunyabandhu purusho. Marudbi sahamodate. Bratrinam prayanam brata. Yonutishtati dharmavit. Sapunyabandhu purusho. Marudbi sahamodate. Dhamarash. Bratrinam prayanam brata. Yonutishtati dharmavit. Sapunyabandhu purusho. Marudbi sahamodate. Go ahead. Bratrinam prayanam brata. Yonutishtati dharmavit. Sapunyabandhu purusho. Marudbi sahamodate. Ross. Bratrinam prayanam brata. Yonutishtati dharmavit. Sapunyabandhu purusho. Marudbi sahamodate. You want to try? You okay? Okay. Anyone online? Zoomers? Not today. Bratrinam, of elder brothers. Prayanam, the path. Brata, a faithful brother. Yaha, one who. Anutishtati, follows. Dharmavit, knowing the religious principles. Saha, that. Punyabandhu, highly pious. Purushaha, person. Marudbihi, the demigods of the winds. Saha, with. Modate, enjoys life. Translation. Narada Muni said to the Shabalashvas, a brother aware of the principles of religion follows in the footsteps of his elder brothers. Because of being highly elevated, such a pious brother gets the opportunity to associate and enjoy with demigods like the Maruts, who are all affectionate to their brothers. Purport. According to their belief in various material relationships, people are promoted to various planets. Here it is said that one who is very faithful to his brothers should follow a path similar to theirs and get the opportunity for promotion to Marud Loka. Narada Muni advised Prajapati Daksha's second group of sons to follow their elder brothers and be promoted to the spiritual world. Okay, I'm going to read one or two more here. Etavaruktva prayayao narado mogadarshanaha tepi chan vagamam margam bratrinam eva marisha. Shukadeva Goswami continued, O best of the advanced Aryans, he's speaking to Purikit now, that's the best of the advanced Aryans, after saying this much to the sons of Prajapati Daksha, Narada Muni, whose merciful glance never goes in vain, left as he had planned. The sons of Daksha followed their elder brothers. Not attempting to produce children, they engaged themselves in Krishna consciousness. Sadrichinam patichinam padasyanupatam gataha na japite navartante paschima yaminir iva. The Sabalashvas took to the correct path, which is obtainable by a mode of life meant to achieve devotional service, or the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like knights that have gone to the west, they have not returned even until now. Etasmin kala there's no purpose obviously. Etasmin kala utpatan bahun pashyan pajapatihi purvavan naradakutam puttanasham upasvanot. At this time, Prajapati Daksha observed many inauspicious signs, and he heard from various sources that his second group of sons, the Sabalashvas, had followed the path of their elder brothers in accordance with the instructions of Narada. Chukrodha Naradaya sao putra shoka vimurchitaha devarshim upalabhyaha roshad vispurjitadaraha. When he, Daksha, heard that the Sabalashvas had also left this world to engage in devotional service, Daksha was angry at Narada, and he almost fainted due to lamentation. When Daksha met Narada, Daksha's lips began trembling in anger, and he spoke as follows. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that Narada Muni had delivered the entire family of Swayambhuva Manu, beginning with Priyavrata and Uttanapada. He had delivered Uttanapada's son Dhruva, and had even delivered Prachanabharhi, who was engaged in fruitive activities. Nevertheless, he could not deliver Prajapati Daksha. Prajapati Daksha saw Narada before him because Narada had personally come to deliver him. Narada Muni took the opportunity to approach Prajapati Daksha in his bereavement because the time of bereavement is a suitable time for appreciating Bhakti Yoga. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7.16, 4 kinds of men: Artha, one who is distressed; Artharti, one in need of money; Jigyasu, one who is inquisitive; and Jnani, a person in knowledge. Try to understand devotional service. Prajapati Daksha was in great distress because of the loss of his sons, and therefore Narada Muni took the opportunity to instruct him regarding liberation from material bondage. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshurunmidatamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, I'm sorry I'm giving 2 classes in a row, but Moga Prabhu begged off again the second class. He had to do the offering at 6 o'clock. So, going back to text 31, describes how Narada Muni is preaching to the Sabalashvas, and he says, a brother aware of the principles of religion follows in the footsteps of his elder brothers. So he's saying, and if you don't, that means that you don't know the principles of religion. Because of being highly elevated, such a pious brother gets the opportunity to associate and enjoy with demigods like the Maruts, who are all affectionate to their brothers. Now, this is the Maruts are higher beings living on higher planets. So he's giving this as an inducement. He's not telling them you can go back to Godhead and get free from birth and death and be reinstated in your original loving relationship with Krishna. He's not preaching like that to them, because they may not they may be completely alien to them. They haven't heard that before, but they've heard about going to the higher planets. You know, this is something. So he's preaching, as I mentioned yesterday, exactly according to time, place, circumstance, and candidate to inspire them to follow their brothers. But it's interesting. At the end of the purport, Prabhupada says, Narada Muni advised Prajapati Daksha's second group of sons to follow elder brothers and be promoted to the spiritual world. So, as far as I can see in this verse, there's nothing about the spiritual world. But the idea is that if they follow their brothers are already great devotees. They understood Krishna consciousness. You remember that whole allegory? So they're practicing Krishna consciousness and austerity. And as soon as their younger brothers come, of course, they're going to listen to the older brothers and they'll become devotees. So that's why Prabhupada says they're on their way to the spiritual world. Then, Narada Muni approaches Daksha, and Prabhupada explains why. Because Daksha is bereaved.
But unfortunately, even though he's bereaved, he's not open to the pure instructions of Narada Muni, because he blames Narada Muni for putting a big blockage in his plans and sending all of his sons, his 11,000 sons, off to perform austerities and basically give up their relationship with him. So his merciful glance never goes in vain. However, Prabhupada says that in the purport to the next verse, that he couldn't deliver Daksa because Daksa was too angry. He was too upset at this, and he cursed Narada, which is a great offense. And so that's it doesn't always work. Okay, like knights have gone, they have not returned even to now. So they didn't bloop. They went and followed their brother's path, and they all went back to Godhead. And so now it says, Prajapati Daksha observed many inauspicious signs. Now, I was wondering about this, and I didn't look at the commentaries because I didn't know I was really going to give class today. But Kali Utpatan, disturbances. So they may have been inauspicious for him because his plans are going to be frustrated here. But you got 11,000 new recruits going back to Godhead, so what could be more auspicious than that? Anyway, I just wondered about that inauspicious signs. How one can interpret something as inauspicious if he's just been wronged or he sees, you know what I mean, like that. In any case, his material plans were frustrated, and Daksha reacted in a very serious way here. When he heard that his other sons had also left this world to engage in devotional service, Daksha was angry at Narada. He almost fainted due to lamentation. Daksha's lips began trembling in anger, and he spoke as follows. No, I think that's as far as I went. We didn't read Daksha's words, but I guess you can guess what they are. So now it's interesting, Prabhupada, in the commentary, he's quoting Vishwanath Chakravarti, how Narada Muni has delivered the entire family of Swayambhuva Manu, and he goes through this Priyavrata. I don't know if you recall at the beginning of the 5th canto, Priyavrata was, he was the natural one to run the universe. But he wasn't doing it. He was on a mountain. I forget the name of the mountain. He was hearing from Narada Muni. He'd renounced everything. So they tried to get him to come back down. He didn't. And finally, Brahma came and instructed him that, don't worry, you won't fall down. You know, this is important for the running of the entire universe, so others can also take to Krishna. He convinced him. And Priyavrata took on this austerity. Remember that. For thousands of years, he was the manager of the universe. He was running everything. But he had been, you know, initiated and trained by Narada Muni, so he was still practicing devotional service, and eventually he renounced and went back to Godhead. And Uttanapada, that was Dhruva's father. So Uttanapada, because of Dhruva, he was also delivered, you know. The only one who wasn't delivered was Suruchi. I don't think she was the stepmother. But Suniti, now did you notice the name? I would like to point this out, the importance of the names. Names are always important. You may not know. Dhruva, his name is Dhruva. You know what Dhruva means? Fixed in determination. He may have been only 5 years old, but he was a Kshatriya. And he had this determination, I am going to get that kingdom. And Narada Muni dovetailed that desire into him performing austerities that was also Bhakti, and eventually became pure. So Prabhupada said the same thing. I was just... this great movie, I'd like to show one time. The Empowered Acharya Returns. It was on YouTube. It's about a half an hour. But Prabhupada is speaking about the early days, how he started the feast, the Sunday Love Feast. You know, they didn't come. He said they didn't come for to hear the full of philosophy. They came a little bit to hear the music of Hare Krishna, and then to have the feast. I said that was perfect because they got prasadam, which he said I was cooking mostly at that time, like Prabhupada's own hand cooking. You can imagine how wonderful that prasadam was. And they got kirtan, and a significant number became attracted, and that was the pioneers. So when it came to Dhruva, as I pointed out yesterday, he dovetailed his determination. He tested him. As I pointed out, that he said, "Go back. You're only 5 years old." So, "Thank you very much, O great sage, but if you can't help me now, I'm going to find God in the forest." You remember his mother told him? Prabhupada added that it must be in some Purana or somewhere, that his mother told him, where am I going to find God? "Well, I've heard that these sages find him in the forest." She's a simple lady. So, okay, I'm going to the forest. Now, if he didn't meet Narada, he could look in the forest for here to eternity. He's not going to find God. But Narada gave him the instruction. So, but he couldn't deliver Daksha, because Daksha, although he was bereaved, he approached Narada with great anger. He was seeing through that his mission had been frustrated. He wasn't understanding how glorious it was that his 11,000 sons were now going to be pure devotees and deliver him. He couldn't see that. Daksha is known to be the last birth. You remember what happened with him. So he had personally come to deliver him. Now, Prajapati Daksha saw Narada before him because Narada had personally come to deliver him. So Narada was trying to, deliver Daksha, but he cursed him. He approached Daksha in his bereavement. The time of bereavement probably refers to the Bhagavad Gita. So these four kinds of people who approach God. They go to the temple, may go to a church, may go to a mosque, may go to a synagogue, and they're often and almost always motivated by one of these four things. The most common is artha. Artha means one who is troubled. There's always so many troubles in this world. And even if there aren't any troubles, I better go and make my peace with God, so that if there are, then I'll have some insurance. So people go because for that, which is fine. This is where one of the principles of knowledge, Krishna speaks, as you all know, is janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshana darshanam. These are troubles, right? Birth, old age, disease, death. Everyone who doesn't die untimely suffers all of these. Right, that's the other chance. You get killed when you're a child or something, but you still got to take birth and go through it. So, one who is distressed. So this is a very, very common reason why people approach God. They go to church, but that's not sufficient. If you don't have the knowledge of who God is, then you can lose your faith if your material distress is not relieved. Prabhupada gives the example of these widows, German widows in World War II. Their sons, their brothers, their husbands, their fathers all went to war, and they were praying like anything, fervently to their God. Mostly Lutherans, I think, at that point, going to church. Please bring them all back healthy, And many times none of them came back, and if they did, they were shattered, And so many of them lost faith. They prayed like anything, but they didn't know the rudiments of Krishna conscious philosophy. Tatteno kampam susamikshramano. That yes, I mean you can pray, but if it doesn't happen, then okay, this is also Krishna's mercy. How can you see like that? You have to be Krishna conscious. So certainly Daksha fit into that artha category, but he wasn't submissive. He wasn't open to the preaching of Narada Muni. He was in great distress because of the loss of his sons, and therefore Narada took the opportunity to instruct him regarding liberation from material bondage. Now, it doesn't give that instruction in the text of the Bhagavatam. That's probably from a commentary. But why wouldn't he? That Narada does that. That's what Narada does. Whoever he meets who could be turned to Krishna, he gives them the instruction that they need. But not everyone can take it, obviously. And so Daksha was too angry, and he, as we know, he's going to curse Narada. I didn't read that. That's the next passage. So Prabhupada also said that I've been cursed by the parents of my disciples. And what was that curse? You can't stay anywhere. You have to keep traveling, which is what Narada's same curse is, that he has to keep traveling. So he keeps traveling. He's always appearing here and there, A whole Devarshir Danyo. I didn't know I was going to give class today, but I like to read this verse glorifying Narada Muni. This is in the first canto. After this he appears in the first canto, right near the beginning, to explain to Vyasadeva why he's troubled, even though he had written all these wonderful literatures, Vedic literatures, basically all of them, including all the Puranas except Bhagavatam. right? The Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutra, the Mahabharata, all of this. But he was dissatisfied, as you may know if you read. So his guru is Narada Muni, and he comes. And after that whole section, which I think yesterday we dealt with, his basic instruction, you sit in meditation, and you meditate on Krishna, and everything will be revealed to you because of your qualification. And then you write one more literature, and that would turn out to be Bhagavatam. So after that whole encounter, and Narada Muni told him his whole story, he was just the son of a maidservant, a pious maidservant who invited the sages, the devotees in during Chaturmasya. Chaturmasya is a wonderful time. It's like 4 months of the rainy season where the great sages, they just sit. And now if you happen to be where they sit, you make a lot of advancement. Lord Chaitanya stayed with Venkata Bhatt in South India during Chaturmasya 4 months. You can imagine having 4 months of Lord Chaitanya's association, straight. And his little son was Gopal Bhatta, would become Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And he was just serving Lord Chaitanya, just like Narada Muni was, so he was completely purified. And Prabodhananda Saraswati was the uncle. He was also there. And he became great sannyasi and wrote the Chaitanya Chandramrita, Radha Rasa Sudhanadi, and so many, Vrindavan Mahimamrita. So wonderful association. So Narada also had this advantage, and he was just doing menial service, doing their laundry, giving the prasadam. And once only, it says, he asked for permission to take the remnants, and they gave it, and he took the remnants, and he became very attracted to hear. This was the first sentence, very attracted to hear, and he heard. And then after they left, he was still with his mother, but his mother was killed by a snake. And so then he had a choice. He could have tried to find Uncle Jim or Aunt Mary to live with, but instead he just went out like Dhruva, into the forest, and he went so far. He describes his travels, meditating, and he's meditating on the Lord in the heart, and then he can't see him. What's going on? And he heard the voice. Krishna said, "You won't see me again this lifetime." But I just to increase your desire for me, I've now just disappeared. Then the next birth, he's up there in the heavenly, with Brahma, and he becomes Narada Muni. It's a long story. So Narada is the most, how could I don't want to say active, but the Mahajan who's most in evidence in the Bhagavatam in terms of instructions. They all have their instructions except for Janaka Rishi. He doesn't appear except in the list. But Bhishma Dev has his prayers, and Swayambhuva Manu has his prayers, and Shukadev, of course, is speaking constantly, And the others, all the Kumaras, Prahlad, everyone. But Narada Muni, he's every canto he comes in, and he's always giving wonderful instructions. And we're in his line. From Narada, Vyas was instructed, Vyas Madhvacharya, down all the way to Lord Chaitanya and of course to Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta, everybody. So here's this, let me find this first, it'll take me a second. Did anyone notice first? A whole day of Ashir? No, this is the last verse in the chapter 6, I think. Yeah, this should do it. Yes, it is. So this is chapter 6 after he's had his encounter with Vyasadeva. A whole day Vashir danyo yam yatkirtim shanganandvana gayan madyan idam tancha ramayat yataran jagat. All glory and success to Srila Narada Muni, because he glorifies the activities of the personality of Godhead, and so doing he himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all the distressed souls of the universe. It doesn't mention in the translation about, but it does mention in the word by word. He's singing and playing his instrument, tantra, by means of the instrument, that veena that he carries. Now that veena, in the song, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, right, Narada Muni Bhajana Veena, he's playing, and that veena is inspired. The music is linked up with the chanting of the holy name. And here's a verse for you. This is the last verse of the Namashtaka by Rupa Goswami, right at the end of the Stavamala. It's a wonderful series of verses. Sometimes I'll just do a class on those, but this last one is really nice. They're all nice. Now you may notice the name of a devotee who's well known now as a Kirtaniya. He's a disciple of Vaisheshika Prabhu. Narada vino jivana sadorminir yasa madhuri pura. Not madhuri pura. Narada vino jivana sadorminir yasa madhuri pura. I forget the rest of it. Pudame vasane vasena sada. Yeah, so it's a prayer. The meaning is, all glories to the holy name, which is the inspiration for Narada Muni's Veena, and which is a very thick flood of nectar, sweet nectar. That's the Madhuripura's name, Madhuripura. He came down here about a year ago. And, O tongue, please always chant this name with relish. May I always chant your name with great taste. It's a prayer to have the taste for the holy name. It's a very nice prayer. Tvam Krishna Nama Param Vasane Vasena Sada. I'm sorry, my memory is faulty here. But this, the holy name, this is what that Veena is. It's inspired by the holy name. It's a living thing, apparently, Tumburu. So we owe a lot to Devarshi. Why is he called Devarshi? Because he's the rishi amongst the devas. He's a scholar amongst the gods, the devotional scholar. It's always called Devarshi. And we can remember. I was just listening. There's another prayer where Prahlad Maharaj, he honors Narada Muni. This one I'll remember, I hope. Evam janam depatitam babavahi kupe kama bikama manayak papatam basangad kritvat nasat sorarshina bhagavan grihitam soham katam devisujeta vabritya seva. This is a very nice verse. He's praying to Lord Nrsingadev, and he says, my dear Lord, following the people in general, I had fallen into an ocean of suffering due to material desires. Napatitam, fallen. Pabavahi kupe, which is like a big well full of snakes, poisonous snakes. Kamami kamam. In other words, by bad association, I also, he's describing himself, but of course, it's metaphorical. I had been infected with so many material desires. His father was just killed. That's what, the slain Hiranyakashipu. And then the whole world rejoiced, like when a snake is killed, That he uses this term, Prabhabahi Kupe, a well full of poisonous snakes. That was his environment. He's growing up, with all the other little demon boys and everything. But your disciple, your great devotee, Narada Muni, Kritvatmasat Surarshina. Surarshina is the same meaning as Devarshi, the rishi amongst the suras, the demigods. Kritvatmasat means that he imparted to me his own qualities by instruction. You remember that he was instructing him in the womb, he was listening, Surarshina Bhagavan Grahitam. Soham Katam Devisujeta Vabritya Sevam. How therefore could I ever give up the service of your dear devotee? Britya Sevam. Notice he's regarding Narada Muni as his guru. So this is a very nice prayer, which Prabhupada quoted in one of his songs. I don't think it was Makani Bhagavad Dharma. It may have been the other one that he wrote on the ship, prayer to the lotus feet of Krishna. But it's a prayer that we can all utter. How can we ever give up our service to Srila Prabhupada? I once wrote an introduction to the Jasa Puja book where I quoted this verse, and I said I was going to modify it a little bit, and I substituted Srila Prabhupada for Narada Muni. How could we ever give up This was written in 1986 when the good ship ISKCON was like going through some rough waters. I'll leave it at that. But anyway, we made it through by Krishna's grace. So. So, Narada Muni has delivered everyone, but he can't deliver Daksha. He's expert, but he's not expert at devotional service. He's expert at procreation, and his desires have been frustrated. Of course, he got his instruction from Brahma. He's one of the Prajapatis. But it's ultimately a material duty that has been interrupted by a very wonderful deliverance of his 11,000 sons. So he should be in ecstasy, but he's just the opposite. So this is a lesson. Daksha, he's expert, but unless we're expert in devotional service, that expertise can be an attachment that drags us down or keeps us from advancing in devotional service. Okay, any discussion on these points before we, we could adjourn.
So,
yeah?
Prabhu, Prajapatis are demigods only, right?
Say again?
Prajapatis are demigods, right? Who is in charge of increasing the progeny?
Prajapati is, in English, the word is progenitor. You can hear the relation, yeah. Someone who reproduces a lot.
So we can think like it's his service, like Daksha's service is to increase...
Here, give me that brown one because it has effect on me. Thanks. Say again?
Yeah, so Prajapati, it is his duty, like his service is to increase like the progeny or something.
Yeah, that was the idea. Is that if you recall, when Brahma started reproducing, what did he have to work with? His own mind. He, from his mind, he created this one. That one didn't work out. Okay, we get that. So his duty, is to fill up the universe with all these living entities who are without bodies, but they have their karma. So he does that, and sometimes it's a hit and miss job. Some demons were created. They went after him. He gave up that body. The Kumaras, they were very wise and wonderful children, beautiful. But they didn't want to get involved, so they kept themselves 6 years old, and he was angry. He became angry. He didn't become angry at them, but he was angry and Rudra comes out. So that's the thing. When yes, it's necessary to populate the universe, and it'll happen through the daughters of Daksha.
Yeah. So my question is, now Narada Muni delivering all this, the souls that are taking bodies and all. Isn't it like an obstruction, God's plan or something?
An obstruction? No, yeah. How are they going to take up Krishna consciousness if they don't have any fingers to chant the beads? In other words, it's just living entities, not even awake yet, I guess. They have to be given bodies to come into. So it's a service. It's a thankless task, but it's a service. Because they're all karmis. That's why they didn't go back to Godhead. But at the same time, Brahma imparts the transcendental knowledge into the heart of Narada Muni, and so he's great at Acharya as well. So it's both. The material side has to be there in order for anyone even to practice devotional service. Just like we have to eat, we have to sleep. That's part of what mat is, a temple is. But it's meant to all be toward the end of exalting your consciousness, so you don't have to do it again. You don't have to come back again to the material body. All right, we have time for any questions abroad or in the ether. Prakash has a question, a comment. He's just holding the mic. Go ahead.
So Prabhu, Narada Muni also enters the courts of demons, right? Like for example, Kamsa, and he encourages them. Maybe the eighth son is the first, or the first son is the eighth.
Yes. He moves the plot along. And, yeah, he does that a lot.
Explain that.
Because he wants to accelerate the descent of Krishna. I think it's described in the Krishna book. He wanted to move things along so that Krishna would come. So that it seems like superficially that he's messing things up. He's causing Kamsa to become angry, and he knows where Krishna is, But that's just his way of increasing the speed with which Krishna manifests his glories and things that go on. He also goes to visit Krishna in Dwarka. That's another wonderful pastime of his. How he goes around to all the palaces, and Krishna is here. He's acting the perfect householder, getting his. He has, by the way, it's not mentioned so much, but he has one daughter by each wife also. 10 sons, 1 daughter. And he's get them married and get the sons married, take care of business and everything. So Narada Muni is, by his visit, then we get to hear about it because it's described. All right, Cletus.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. You mentioned that Narada Muni was dissatisfied with writing the Srimad Bhagavatam.
No, Vyasadeva was dissatisfied.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Why?
Why was he dissatisfied?
Right.
Well, he himself, I think, came to the right conclusion. Because he had not sufficiently glorified pure devotional service. It's not that he hadn't mentioned it. After all, the Bhagavad Gita is there in the Mahabharata. Bhagavad Gita culminates in surrender to Krishna. But so much of the Mahabharata, I'll give you a little recounting of some of my history. At one point, the BBT was getting set to print a Mahabharata, translated by Vidyananda Das Goswami. He had translated the Adi Parva and the Sabha Parva. Sabha means the assembly hall, and Adi just means the first. And it's huge. The Mahabharata is like 5.5 times larger than the Bhagavatam, and Bhagavatam is big. So anyway, I'm working on the Adi Leela. I think it was the Adi Leela, and one of those chapters was all about this planet of the snakes, which is down near below us, you know. And okay, you know, but then verse after verse, paragraph after paragraph, was just a list of the names of the leading snakes on that. Have you ever read that? And I said, really? I have to worry about all the diacritics on here and work? What is this? In other words, a lot of it had nothing to do with bhakti. Not, you know, maybe remotely, but it's not. And you'll find that, and then you have a whole section of the Vedas which are called Karma Kanda. Karma Kanda means that they're full of all kinds of prescriptions and proscriptions for how you can get to the heavenly planets. You do this sacrifice, that sacrifice, and you act in this way, do this and that. And a lot of people think this is what the Vedas are all about. Krishna mentions that. Yami mam pushpitam vacham papadanta vipashchita veda varatastabhadananya rastirvana. Somehow I memorize that verse. Is that pushpitam vacham, very flowery language describing Nanda Nandana, how, you know, it's this ideal weather. It never gets cold like this. You know, the beautiful flowers and beautiful women and, you know, very attractive. Oh yeah, I want to go there, and you make the sacrifices. And they say this is all there is. They say this is what the Vedas are all about. There's a huge section. So that is what Vyasadeva wrote those, you know. And so he had written other things, and he was dissatisfied because he had not written anything that wholly and solely glorified Krishna, his incarnations, his devotees, and the process of devotional service. And so Narada Muni confirmed his suspicion that was his problem. And so he said, okay, now you go and you meditate on Krishna, Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samyak Pranahite, and it describes that in the 6th chapter of the 1st canto. And then what did he see? He saw Krishna and he saw Maya behind him, under his shelter. He had a vision. And he knew, and then it describes Yeya Samohito Jiva Atmanam Chiganapangam. Although the living entities are by nature transcendental, right? We learned that in the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. We're pure spirit. We don't belong here. We're now mixtures of spirit and matter. Every living entity, from the cats and dogs, insects, all the way up to Brahma, is a combination of spirit and matter. So, but we identify ourselves with matter, and therefore we're subject to heat, cold, and all the threefold miseries: birth, death, old age, and disease. So there has been, you know, philosophy about that, but it had been mixed. It wasn't pure. So the Bhagavatam wholly and solely deals with the subjects I mentioned. And so he meditated, and then because of Maya Devi, Krishna's illusory energy, which he also saw, we are convinced we're the body, and therefore we suffer so many anarthas. Anarthas means things you don't want. We can all make a list. You know, within the threefold miseries, diseases, even as young people we have some. In other words, these are anarthas. Anarthopasamam Shakshad, Bhakti Yogamam. They don't know. We don't know, the Kali Yugites especially, that these anarthas can be upashamam, can be eradicated by the process of Bhakti Yoga. And therefore, Lokasyad in Vidvan Chakre Sattvata Sangitam, he compiled, or he wrote, this Sattvata Sangita, which is the Bhagavatam. And then what's the result? Yasyayam Shriyamanayam Krishna Paramapurushe Paramapurushe Utpadite Shoka Moha Bayapaha. Then by hearing this Bhagavatam, not just hearing it superficially, but really hearing it with great attention. Shushusho means submissive oral reception with very ardent hearing. One can, as explained in the very second verse of the whole Bhagavatam, you can see Krishna in the heart, and you become free of all these anarthas and go back to Godhead. So in those 4 verses, it's described that his vision and his realization and his motivation became fulfilled for writing the Bhagavatam to help all the united souls, especially of this Kali Yuga, because this all happened at the end of the last Yuga. So that's the idea, is that the Vyasadeva was dissatisfied, and in his dissatisfaction, his spiritual master, Narada Muni was the spiritual master, completely realized, and he came and with strong words, basically saying whatever you've written up to now is like a garbage heap, because it's not pure devotional, and it's and people who are not they're attracted to it. I mean, not entirely, obviously. Padma Purana, there's many things about bhakti in there, but it's not on the level of the Bhagavatam. So he inspired him to take his instruction after telling him his own story and taking his instruction, meditating, and sure enough, he was inspired to write the Bhagavatam. So that's how the story plays out. It's all in the first canto. The first canto is kind of an introduction to the Bhagavatam. There are very many important instructions. But then when you start the second canto, again we're saying Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It starts with the same injunction. And Shukadev starts speaking there to Parikshit in the 7 days. Well, thank you for the question. And it's not that late, so I'll give you 1 or 2 poems. This is a poem written in a very wonderful meter. It's the easiest meter there could possibly be. Every syllable is long, heavy. You don't have to worry about it in configurations. Written by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And he says, you can listen. Barha pidam maulau bibradvamshi nadan atanvan. Nana kalpa shri sampanno gopa stribe sambita. Netranandam kurvan Krishna tuntad vikshe tha. Sarve kamak sampadyarat asmakam vidyasinam. So those who have difficulty with the complex meters, you can learn this verse. And I put it into English poem, you can learn that first. Decked with crown of peacock plumes and chanting songs with flute you sing. Wearing lovely ornaments while, now I broke my concentration. While standing, wearing lovely ornaments while standing in the gopis' ring. Dear most Krishna, eyes delight, if you will kindly glance our way, all our heart's desires will be fulfilled on this most blessed day. So everyone can get this verse, memorize it, and offer it to Giridhari, and then we'll all go back to Godhead. Anyway, it may take a few times. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.